Oh boy, some news about Mass Effect. And which one is it? Mass Effect 2, about some of the dialogue written by some of the writers that just happened to be coming out just today. And it was from a tweet by Patrick Weeks. And I had no idea it was from Patrick Weeks because he blocked me. So I didn't know about that. I had to find this out other means. Thanks for telling me, guys. I appreciate it. And it's about the most unsubtle line in Mass Effect, or Mass Effect 2, rather. And if you know Mass Effect 2, there's lots of dialogue, there's lots of characters, there's lots of memorable lines. As crazy as the story was, there was some good stuff. There was some funny stuff, there was some romantic stuff, and some not so romantic stuff. And if you look at even some of the lines from some of the characters, there's memorable lines from Joker. He cracks a lot of jokes. There's Jacob, who has probably the least amount of memorable lines, at least in this wiki. It's Jacob Taylor, folks. He doesn't have much to say. He's a black man who wants to know what happened to his dad, and that's pretty much it. But lots of great dialogue from everyone, so it's more of a group effort. That's why you play these games. Bioware is known for group dialogue or team dialogue, team gameplay stories. So hopefully you're going to get that whenever you play a Bioware title. Now, the ones in particular we're talking about is a line from FemShep, which I didn't play much of, and a romance line with Thane. And it's a little strange. Here's the actual clip, and this is during a dialogue with Thane where Thane is talking about his wife, who then gets killed, and then Thane becomes this cold-hearted machine-killing murderer. And after you hear that story, the uppermost dialogue prompt is, "I want you, Thane." And this is the most unsubtle line, apparently, in the whole series. Now, usually I would think this would be a Renegade option, and I can see that from a Renegade shepherd who says, "Great, you told me your life story. Let's do it." So for this to be at least in the topmost, which is typically a Paragon option, feels a bit awkward. Romance should never be direct. It should never be unsubtle. It should be slow and developing and believable, so that there's subtleties. There's reasons why you say the things you do. It's not just lust, or else it's not romance. So for this to happen this way sounds strange. And let's hear the story behind it. Luckily, this was printed out. Late 2009, I'm on Mass Effect 2, given that we're only a few months from ship. Mass Effect 2 is also on me. I'm one of the few writers left on the project tackling bugs. A bug comes in saying there's a lack of clarity around the opt-in to Thane's romance. You only get one chance to choose to romance him, and they're missing it, and therefore missing a bunch of content. And some folks are going in by accident too. So, Thane's writer has left the team. Okay. So some writer who did all this work said goodbye. I did my job. Thank you. Thanks for the contract. See you guys. So I look at the conversation. It's a great conversation. Well, Thane is an interesting character. He is a philosophical assassin, an alien assassin. So he has this ability to go into his mind and I think work from muscle memory. Everything's just perfectly repeated from a vision of his. But I can also see how you could look at the dialogue options and not realize that one of them is you saying, "Let's start a relationship." So yes, it needs to be fixed. And then Patrick goes, "Wouldn't the big heart icon make that clear?" I don't think there were big heart icons in Mass Effect 2. I believe it was introduced in Dragon Age 2. That was a different game, of course. So this is 2009. And Mass Effect 3 didn't use these icons either to indicate that you were entering a relationship, which is, it's kind of annoying in a sense, because all you want these dialogue options to be in the dialogue wheel is just your choice. You don't know what it should imply. Shepard doesn't know exactly what they're going to say because the words are just a paraphrase. And then Shepard says something slightly different, hopefully more than what was repeated in the sentence. So it's kind of like you want things to be as is. You don't want icons Now, people will say, well, what's wrong with an icon? I, I want to enter a relationship with Thane, so I'll keep choosing the heart icon. To me, that misses the point. That misses the point of what you're trying to do in a conversation. Yes, you have that intention, but just because you have the same intention doesn't mean you're going to get that in reality. If everything is just a bunch of icons, press X to romance Thane, then it's kind of silly. It's just a video game. You want to have dialogue feel natural. The term that lots of people are using is organic dialogue. It just comes about naturally. Well, you have to know how that works. And if you throw away things like the Paragon Renegade system, no color schemes, that would be organic. It would just be a bunch of options, and you select from a list, and that would be it. Now, to do that is hard because you're talking about branching paths and writing all kinds of dialogue. So even this sort of work, with all the camera angles and the animations, that's a hefty amount of effort on behalf of the cutscene director, the dialogue writer, not so much the voice actors, but there's still a lot of work on every path. So you have to be clear. You have to be good. You have to know how to write subtly. You have to know how to write romance. So he's saying that they didn't use icons to indicate that you were in a relationship. No hover text on big choices either. So how people accidentally ended up showering with Samantha Trainer, right? Okay, so let's rewrite the end of the scene, touching the original writer's lines as lightly as possible to add a clean chance to opt into a romance with Thane. Aha, but this is late 2009. This scene is locked. No dialogue changes possible. Game done, yo. So in this case, the actors have been paid. The actual lines of dialogue have been recorded. You can't change stuff, but you can change in-game text. And that's, I think, one of the saving graces of this style of the dialogue wheel, is that you can change stuff to make it more comprehensive, even though what they actually say, like Shepard says, is different. And there are a few examples of that in all the games, really, where what was written on the dialogue wheel is not what Shepard actually says. So, yeah, there is some discrepancy between final product and the intention of the writer. Thane is talking about how his wife died. He's never told anyone. A Shepard who wants to romance Thane tells him she's there for Thane to lean on whatever he needs. Original paraphrase was something like, I'm here for you. The writer, Chris Etoile, did an amazing job. And yeah, Chris is an amazing writer, at least for the project in comparison to other writers on Mass Effect 2. He did a great job. He had a great insight into the characters and a great guidance for what those characters should have been. Unfortunately, it wasn't as influential as it should have been. His guidance for Tali, I believe. I'm trying to remember all the other ones he did. Legion, I think. A lot of great insight into what those characters were. But players who wanted to romance Thane didn't understand that this dialogue choice was their one and only chance to get into a romance path with him, and players who didn't want to romance Thane didn't like stumbling onto it by accident. So, yeah, this is a cheap way. This is the most inexpensive way of fixing a problem to make it clear. It just doesn't sound very good within the context of the conversation. Did 2009 me think this was a good paraphrase? Wow, no. Was the best 2009 me could come up with to be 100% clear with no other changes available and paraphrases limited to 30 characters? Apparently, yes. So here we have a writer just going nuts over a sentence. And this is not uncommon for people to flip out over a certain word even in their writing. Why did I use that word? It's a loaded word. It's not good for the scene. It makes it look like Shepard is some sort of crazy, horny lady after listening to, I guess she gets turned on by hearing the death of women and an assassin kill people and turning him into a machine. That wouldn't be inaccurate in some playthroughs of Renegade FemShep as a soldier, I guess. But it does call into question these elements. Once you start having even the change of the dialogue being on top to imply Paragon or to imply diplomacy or being calmer and nicer and gentler, whereas Renegade is usually the bottom, fierce, straight to the point, stop wasting time. That would have made more sense, I think. And that would have at least clarified the tone of what she ends up saying. Every time I see this play on Twitch, the player makes fun of the paraphrase. Really? This guy is watching Mass Effect 2 players, the very few group of people who play FemShep and happen to romance Thane and happen to choose that? That's a very, very specific group of people on Twitch. Who is this guy watching on Twitch? Subtle, Shepard. And they are totally right. I wish they'd cut this earlier so I could have changed the lines or done something less clunky than this. But this is what last-minute fixes look like. Again, no great moral here, except that I'm glad we have better tools now. Icons to indicate you're flirting. Hover text to make it clear that you're entering a relationship. That kind of thing. And also that changing context by only changing paraphrases is real clunky. So he's accurate in saying that using icons and using color schemes, even stat reveals, when you play the Obsidian games or the Fallout games, that tell the audience, oh, you're using your char stat or your intelligence stat. That is not as organic as just having text on the screen. It does help, though. But that's the same problem that we had with Mass Effect 1 and just pretty much all the Bioware games. You always end up choosing the Paragon or Renegade option because that's what you wanted to do. You know that's going to solve the problem as opposed to not solving the problem. And it distanced itself from organic storytelling or at least organic dialogue, which involves choices. So getting the tone wrong is somewhat forgivable in a Bioware game, or at least a Mass Effect game, just due to the nature of the dialogue wheel not exactly representing what Shepard's going to do and say. So it's forgivable, but it doesn't make it any good. It doesn't make it better. So, and I think he further says that he wanted to use other terms. I just wish I could find it here. Yeah, so follow-up tweet added Week saying that he would have incorporated the line, "You matter to me, Thane." There's lots of things that Shepard could have said to here, saying, wow, what a great story. I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't know this was how it was. You really opened up to me. I wish I could share my feelings with you as well. There's all sorts of subtle ways. If he was just like, if human interaction was non-subtle, it's like, hey, I like you. Hey, I like you too. We should start copulating or something. Hey, what a great idea. That's not really believable. You know, we're not robots. Emotions matter. People talking about the death of loved ones and turning themselves into killing machines. Pretty heavy-duty stuff. And to be sexually aroused over those stories tells us more about Shepard as a person than it does about the person revealing what kind of lifestyle they just led. So subtlety, very important in human dialogue, very important in romantic relationships. And if you're going to have a Paragon Renegade system which represents diplomacy and getting straight to the point, then you may as well use it consistently. And sadly, this is not consistent. But hey, Bioware dialogue, thousands of lines of dialogue. Not everyone's great. What are you going to do? But cool stuff. Glad I could read Patrick's tweets, even though I'm blocked. Glad to be hearing something about Mass Effect 2 and all the wonders of dialogue, even though the plot was absolute trash. But thanks for listening, guys. Hope you're having some fun these days in Bioware or non-Bioware land. And I'll talk to you soon.